And especially if we're talking about marriage, I want this effectively, you correct me if I'm wrong, to stand the test of time,
Absolutely.
right? I
Yeah.
would probably ideally like to not have to do this again.
Right. Right.
Okay,
This is just a one-time thing for me.
correct. So what I just said there and what she just said there is even more paramount because if I want something to last, you said 27, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
At least 60, 70 years, probably.
Yeah.
Good average, hopefully more. I'm going to have to embody a lot of these things. So when I want to be complacent, I cannot give in. I have to fight to want to compromise, to listen, to understand. I cannot stop ever getting too comfortable that I don't want to put in that effort.
Right.
So I just really want to stress that point because I see so many times, to your point, when people are together and it's like working, and then they get to this point, I don't know why it happens or when it happens exactly, but they don't want to try as hard anymore. They don't want to keep working on themselves as much. And then they kind of get surprised that the relationship degrades over time. She just said, listen, shout out to you because you answered my question without me having to ask. So you were just giving some really, really solid guidance, I think. So I
Yeah.
want to try to echo that point real quick because you're talking about compromise, about listening, about learning to kind of what I would just call troubleshooting, like working through issues and not quickly, like you said, throw in the towel. I'm going to use your relationship example and I'm going to expand that to any relationship.
Right.
So to me, when I talk about this, I'm a father. I'm talking about those of us that are parents. If you're in a relationship, if it's your sibling or any other friend that you may value, right? What Kateri just said to me is so important because we have to always remember we're two different people who have two different viewpoints about any given situation. So we're going to look at it differently. We're going to approach it differently. We're going to feel differently about those things. But if I value you, right? If I appreciate you and everything that you add to my life, I'm going to listen. I'm going to consider. I'm going to try my best to compromise through whatever those issues may be. And especially if we're talking about marriage, I want this effectively, you correct me if I'm wrong, to stand the test of time,
Absolutely.
right? I
Yeah.
would probably ideally like to not have to do this again.
Right. Right.
Okay,
This is just a one-time thing for me.
correct. So what I just said there and what she just said there is even more paramount because if I want something to last, you said 27, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
At least 60, 70 years, probably.
Yeah.
Good average, hopefully more. I'm going to have to embody a lot of these things. So when I want to be complacent, I cannot give in. I have to fight to want to compromise, to listen, to understand. I cannot stop ever getting too comfortable that I don't want to put in that effort.
Right.
So I just really want to stress that point because I see so many times, to your point, when people are together and it's like working, and then they get to this point, I don't know why it happens or when it happens exactly, but they don't want to try as hard anymore. They don't want to keep working on themselves as much. And then they kind of get surprised that the relationship degrades over time.
Right.
And I'm like, what thing can you not work at and it somehow maintains itself? Please enlighten me. Because I don't know a thing that does that. I don't know something that just keeps going on cruise control forever without any input on your behalf. So your point to me is very valid. I just really wanted to echo that because I think so many people out there are quick to run. And I'm not saying there's not times to leave. There
Right.
are absolutely healthy reasons to get out of relationships.
Right.
But if my first instinct is to go, that's not healthy. You're not going to be able to find somebody to sustain that with because it's just inevitable. You're going to run into issues that you're not quite prepared for. So you have to lean on the strength of our relationship. You have to lean on that confidence that regardless of what we get thrown at us, we will actively do our best to try to work through that and then also recruit, additional support. if we're not able to do it all on our own, depending
Yeah.
on, you know, what it is that we're dealing with. Would
Mhm.
you disagree with any part of that?
No, gosh, no. I would echo that too. It's just like try to find between you and your partner, like try to work through those things together, right? And I think
Mhm.
I want to mention that because sometimes like with this person I realize that he's someone I don't want to lose, so that's enough for me to stay around and want to work through the problems no matter how big or small they are, right?
Mhm.
It's like that is the motivation. Like I don't want to lose this person. I'm gonna constantly work for you, and I'm constantly gonna try to make this work even when things are hard, even when things are difficult. We're gonna make this work, and I need to see that from him too, right? If not, we
Right.
wouldn't be where we're at.
Absolutely.
So that's big. um and then I'm sorry, wait, let me come back to what was the point we were discussing is the
Well, yeah, you were giving guidance, and I was backing up and affirming a lot of what you said.
okay, good. So basically I'm glad that you validate my points, because coming from a professional like yourself who's working with couples and whatnot, I'm glad that I'm, shedding some light in my I guess my young age and my couple years experience in this relationship. But I have learned a lot of what's so important and what's quality, and
Hmm.
um what matters and where you need to make the effort. So just making that constant effort for your partner and never
Yeah.
losing that. Because even like with my parents, going back to them, like I still see them going on date nights. Like they do that like once a month, once a
Beautiful.
yeah,
Beautiful.
they do that once a week, and I want to keep that, in the future. And right
Good.
now, thankfully, like we're not in this hurry to like. I used to be like, I want kids by 25 and all this stuff, but of course, you realize what life really is, and now it's like in this first year of marriage and 2 years, whatever it may be, I want to make sure that we're always like we're still having fun. We're still in a sense dating, you
Yeah.
know, dating and still taking each other out, trying to make the effort, remembering what's important to each of us, and going off of that. And then when one day kids one day hopefully come into the mix, we'll
Hmm.
always make each other a priority.
There you go. I love that part.
I
I will.
haven't been there yet. Yeah,
No, no.
but
I mean, and that's fair. I mean, I will tell you the way I tell my clients, especially. And this is also like even before you have kids.
hmm
To me, the hierarchy is always you're number one.
yeah.
This is my. You don't have to agree with me, but I'm just telling you my position. More than your kid, more than your spouse, more than your parents.
hmm
You are always number one.
Yes.
The reason why, the reason why is because if you're not well, if you don't take care of you, other than you, the first person who's going to suffer is your partner,
hmm
who should be the second priority for those of us that are in relationships, or in your case, going to be married, because it will have a direct impact on the ability for that relationship to remain healthy, to remain functional. Because if I become dysfunctional, therefore the relationship will naturally become dysfunctional. And then number three on that list would then be my child and or children. Because if I'm not well, the relationship is not well with my partner, their other parent, which means the stability and the foundation of the home is threatened.
Absolutely.
So to me, it has to be in that order. There's no compromise. That's the
I,
way that I look at that. And that's the way that I try to advise people
right.
when it comes to trying to have that longevity in the relationship. If you ever let you slip and you say, I don't matter as much as fill in the blank,
Right.
there's going to be a cost. There's a cost to not doing that. And I see too many people who have to pay that price. And sometimes, not always, it can lead to a relationship completely falling apart. It can lead to a divorce. It can lead to a separation or a breaking down of the family unit. And I don't want that for us. But we
Right.
got to understand these are things that we can proactively address and not simply wait until we're in the situation, then trying to reactively do something about it. That does not have to be the outcome. But I like a lot of what you talked about, because it seems like not only from what your parents taught you, both through what they've told you and what they showed you, but just through the natural course of you being with your guy, you've learned that I need to value these things too. I need to put in this effort always. And that's going to lead us to be able to have the type of relationship to stand the test of time the way we want. Is that
Absolutely.
fair to say?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely, definitely. It's so you put everything so well into words, honestly, and I just like
Thank you.
I'm like,
I
yes,
try
yes.
my best.
No, and that's where your counseling and all that, your background really comes into play. And I think you shed a lot of really good, wisdom. And um, I couldn't agree more with all the points you're making. That's just genuine, like truly, based on like my lived experience. And I think that, like you said, you should always want to keep making the effort,
Mhm.
because I think that when that point stops is like you said, when things start to topple over.
Mhm.
And I have to be good with myself, and I have to find my own ways of coping with things,
Yeah.
in order to make our relationship work. And I think that if I didn't have that stability from the get-go, things probably would have toppled over, because any small thing probably would have triggered me enough to be like, I'm done, this is not what I want.
That does happen. That
Right.
happens to a lot of people. But again, kudos to you guys. It seems like y'all have a much better foundation to really build off of. So I think there's a lot of good things, that are going to happen in the future.